Okay, let's look at answers to the lab problems from chapter 12. So assigned to you are problems 1, 6-part A, B, and then 13, just do the all 4 steps as per usual. So I've already got the answers for questions 1 and 6 written down. Question 1 asked, why should you use the ANOVA instead of several t-tests to evaluate mean differences when an experiment consists of 3 or more treatment conditions? And what we said in the very beginning of this lecture was, for that chapter, is that if we ran separate t-tests, we would be running multiple alpha levels that would add up for the entire experiment. So if we ran several t-tests, we would be inflating the experiment-wise alpha level. And by doing that, we'd be inflating or increasing our chances or odds of making a type 1 error. So we do the ANOVA instead of several t-tests so we can control the experiment-wise alpha level and therefore control our odds of making a type 1 error. For question 6, it says a researcher reports an F ratio with degrees of freedom between of 2 and degrees of freedom within of 30. So our DF between is 2 and within is 30. And question A says, for independent measures ANOVA, question A, part A says, how many treatment conditions? What's the value of K? Well, we know to get degrees of freedom between treatments, if you look at your formula sheets, that's K minus 1. So if the answer is 2, what minus 1 equals 2? Well, obviously 3 does. So for 6A, K equals 3 points. 6B I had to do a little bit more work for. We want to know what the total number of scores is. Well, if we think about it, we know our degrees of freedom between is 2, within is 30. So our degrees of freedom for the total study would be 32. These things have to add up. The formula for degrees of freedom total is capital N minus 1. So something minus 1 equals 32. Well, 33 minus 1 equals 32. So that's how we know that there were a total of 33 scores in the entire study. In this case, also 33 participants. So that is questions 1 and 6. And now let's go ahead and look at the ANOVA for question number 13. So for question number 13, starting with our all 4 steps, the first real thing then is our preparation stage. In our prep stage, the only thing that was not given to us was K. All the other work was given to us already. So K equals 3. I'm not going to bother to write that down because I'm just going to have to erase it again immediately. So K equals 3. Then step 1, our hypotheses. Again, I'm not going to write it because we've already written it. You know what it looks like. The alternate hypothesis is at least one treated population mean will be different than another treated population mean. And the null hypothesis is treated population mean 1 equals treated population mean 2, which equals treated population mean 3. Again, those are the only ways we can write that in this chapter and the next. So we don't need to, I don't need to write that down for you. You know what that looks like. We've done those in the lectures. So step 2 would be to get our critical F. Again, we don't really have the values yet because we don't see the, if we were doing this in real time, we don't have step 3 done yet. But since this should be after the fact, we can go ahead and write that down. So for step 2, our alpha level was 0.05. We would have discovered in our calculations that our degrees of freedom between treatments was a 2. And our degrees of freedom within treatments was a 15. So our critical F equals 3.68. So again, we wouldn't have been able to know that until we'd already done step 3, but you're supposed to be done with the whole problem if you're watching this. So otherwise, you just got to preview some answers. All right, step 3, doing the math. All right, so I'm just going to report our answers in here. I just want you to be able to see it as well as hear it. So our sums of squares between treatments was 96 points. Sums of squares within treatments was 80 points. Sums of squares total is 176 points. Degrees of freedom between treatments was 2. Degrees of freedom within treatments was 15. Degrees of freedom total, 17. Mean squares between treatments would be 48. Mean squares within treatments is 5.33. Now remember, that's a rounded value. What do? We report rounded values, we calculate with the full thing. So we want to calculate our F ratio with the full value there, which could make a difference in your answer. So we have an F of 2 and 15. Now, so let's look at this. When we do 80 divided by 15, for this row here, it's 5.33333333 for infinity, right? So what do? We write down a rounded answer. Now, if we calculated with the rounded answer, 48 divided by 5.33 equals 9.0056, and so on and so forth. So if we were to round that, because we have to report rounded answers, that would round to 9.01, which incidentally is what the textbook says at the back of the book, but they're wrong, because we don't want to divide by 5.33. We want to do 48 divided by 5.33333333, a bunch of them. Again, if we go out 6, 7 places, we're fine. And now when we hit equals, we still have to round, but it's 9.00000006. So now it properly rounds to 9.00. Ran out of room at the very end there. 9.00. That looks like 9.8. That's better. So if you got 9.01, you calculated with rounded values. Shame on you. If you calculate with the real number, the final answer is 9.00. Well, our critical F was only 3.68 we saw in step 2. So in step 4, what is our decision? We are clearly going to reject the null hypothesis. And in APA, we would say we have an F of 2 and 15. That equals 9.00. P less than 0.05. Now, here's a bonus question. True or false? A post hoc test would now be required to further understand these results. True. Why is it true? It's true because we rejected the null. So we've got differences that we need to find. And it's also true because we have 3 treatment conditions. You need 3 or more. So we rejected the null with 3 or more treatment conditions, means we would now have to do a post hoc test. Whether that's a Tukey's or a Chef's or somebody else's test, that would be up to you as an independent researcher out in the real world. But for us in the classroom world, it'd either be Tukey's or nothing, because that's the only one we know how to do, right? So there are the answers to your Chapter 12 lab. As always, you've got questions, let me know. We can work this out. We can find ways to communicate if the written medium isn't working for you, the emails or Canvas messaging. So anyway, there it is. I hope that this is clicking along for you. I know they can feel like a lot of work. They are a lot of work. Before we go to Chapter 13, you're going to want to look for one more video from this chapter, extra credit. Go look for the Chapter 12 extra credit video.